Rosebuds, it's your girl Nairi Rose, and we are back with another episode. Now, this one is going to be interesting because I am doing a movie review. This is my first movie review, but today's episode is Conversations About Sinners. If you have not seen Sinners, you should definitely go check it out. Viewers' discretion is advised. Look at the rating, especially if you have children and kids. Just make sure that when you go see this movie, you're ready to unpack a lot. I even have my own notes just about how I feel about the movie and why it's significant to me. A lot of people are seeing the movie and conversations are being had, and I just feel like Sinners was needed for the culture. Like, we needed a movie like this, an original film, to get certain aspects of diversity talked about, music, religion, spirituality, all of it is embedded in Sinners. So without further ado, let me get right into it. So the first thing that I want to touch base on is when you go see the movie, it starts similar to like Black Panther. If you don't know the director, Ryan Coogler, shout out to Ryan Coogler, not just because he's from the Bay, he's from Oakland, but just because of the growth in his direction and just what he's able to do and bring to life. It's incredible. So Ryan Coogler starts off the movie similar to like Black Panther with storytelling. And he talks about, things lurking in the dark. There is so much duality in this movie, and I'll do my best to kind of touch on where I saw duality in Sinners. But he starts off by letting us know that the story takes place in Clarksdale, Mississippi. Now, why is that significant? Clarksdale has a lot of history as far as the civil rights movement and, the migration of people going from the South to places like Chicago, where they had this idea of freedom. Now, Clarksdale, for me, is familiar in the sense that this is where Emmett Till, if you don't know who Emmett Till is, you need to do some research. Emmett Till was brutally beaten and killed. He was falsely accused of whistling or looking at a white woman, and they dragged him out of bed. He was 14 years old and they beat him to death. His body was found in the Tallahatchie River, and it's just a little ironic because my family is from Louisiana. They are from a small town in Louisiana, and my grandmother, she would always, as we were driving, because Mississippi and Louisiana are fairly close, we would drive to a place called Picayune a lot. And so with Clarksdale, we would drive and she'd be like, oh, you see that part right there? That's where his body was found. And so my great grandfather was able to see Emmett Till's body when he was found weeks later. My grandmother said she couldn't stomach going down and seeing the body, but she said she sat in the car while everybody crowded around Emmett Till. So that just resonates with me because it already sets the tone of the direction of the film. Granted, I do not like slavery movies. I feel like slavery movies are so tired. In order to grow and overcome the dark history, or the dark history that we talk about constantly year after year, it's put in history books. I don't know if they're removing it, but I just feel like every time I see a slavery movie, it's very triggering and it's very like disturbing to watch just what happened to my people. So for this being set in that time, it kind of just, I was a little bit like, okay, where are we going with this? Nonetheless, it ended up, even though people were working on a plantation, I didn't see like people getting hit with whips, and I didn't see people getting beat. I'm so happy that he took that aspect and element of what happened to us a little bit out of the movie, out of the film. Granted, there's still darkness that awaits, and I will get into what kind of happens, and if I haven't said this, spoiler alert, but we're talking about Jim Crow here, and I'm looking at my notes because I don't want to leave anything out, but we're talking about Jim Crow and just how devastating that whole era was for African American people and maybe people who were allies. The Native Americans are mentioned in the story, which is something that we need to talk about when it comes to like unification amongst people of color and people who are indigenous to the land. But something that stood out, because when I think of Jim Crow, I think of like the Willie Lynch letter. And if you don't know what that is, it's very dark and disturbing, but it kind of outlines how Black people were perceived and how we should be treated to create division, which is what we see today in 2025 in America. We see people come from outside of the country into the country just to practice racism. Look it up. People come to America just to practice racism like it's a sport. So just getting all of that and just being part of the film. I watched it twice. The first time was a lot different than the second time. And so just seeing like the bits and pieces of racial segregation being touched on, I was like, okay, where are we going with this? So I kind of want to, when I talk about the twins, shout out to Michael B. Jordan for doing an excellent job. I feel like if anybody were to do that, especially with the business relationship and possibly a friendship, but I think as many times as Michael B. Jordan and Ryan Coogler have worked together, that is a family unit. You could just see it. When you get to a level of comfortability with someone, great things come about, great things arise. And they've been rocking for a long time. I remember when I first saw Fruitvale Station, being that I'm from Oakland, being that there was the Oscar Grant situation, and just how he beautifully orchestrated that movie. I believe one of the scenes, Michael B. Jordan, he's playing Oscar and he goes to pick up his daughter. I went to that same daycare with like the big bird on the side of the building. I believe it was like blue, but it was just so like detailed and there was so much imagery. So to see them work on this project, and I know they did Creed and things like that, but to see them come together and like the chemistry is so strong. And Michael B. Jordan, he plays these twins. They're known as Smoke and Stack. And so it kind of touches on like the hero's journey. If you don't know what the hero's journey, it's like an archetype for like just the direction in which a film is going to go. Like you have your plot, but the hero's journey is like deeper than that. Think of any superhero. They have their ordinary world and they have, you know, when life was normal, and then things escalate to the climax. But as they get to the climax, you meet the mentors, you meet the villains, aka the vampires. Like you meet all these different people, allies, was Grace an ally? Like things like that, just it makes it so exciting to talk about Sinners. So when it comes to Smoke and Stack, they first come into the scene and they're coming from Chicago, which is has its own history. It's mentioned that they worked for Capone, which is like mob life, gangster type. And so now they're back after being gone for 7 years. And they are purchasing what they don't know is a slaughterhouse. And they purchase it from a man named Hogwood. And if you don't know, like just looking at the character who plays Hogwood and the name itself, it's like pig. It means swine. So of course, like you go into the story, yes, you have these two strong black men making this grand purchase, and there's like some independence in that and admiration for that, but you could already tell like trouble is awaiting. You've been gone, you buying a business, and it's a club, it's a juke joint, Club Juke. So that's how the movie gets started. I don't want to ruin too much, but just with Smoke and Stack and the duality, everything about that movie was spiritual. If I looked at it just red and blue, because those were the colors that they were wearing, some people interpret it differently. I instantly thought of The Matrix. I thought of The Matrix, seeing Stack in red and seeing Smoke in blue. I was like, this is so profound. Red and blue has powerful meanings. A long time ago, I talked about the Chakra Handbook, which is a book that I love and I read, and I was understanding frequencies and chakras. But the thing about colors, right? Red gives you like this quick gratification. It's quick, but its feeling is fleeting. Whereas blue, a lot of people don't pay attention to blue, but that the frequency around blue, it stays. It remains for a long time. You could be red pilled or blue pilled. And I believe that when you or a person is being red pilled, they are seeking awareness. They want to be aware and they want to accept the truth of their reality. Whereas the blue pill is kind of content with the illusion of reality, what is fake. So just keeping that in mind, like I was keeping that in mind as I was watching the movie, and I was like, okay, let's see what happens to these characters as they are on their hero's journey. So of course, they're opening the club and they need things to be lit for them. So they go into town. I love the scene where Smoke is teaching the young lady how to negotiate money. I think that is something that people in general need to discuss. Negotiations. I feel like there's a lot of fear in negotiating your worth and your salary. But the only way you're going to know if you're worth something is if you take a chance on yourself, if you negotiate. Now, of course, when he was negotiating with the little girl, I mean, she said 50 cents and they didn't land on it, but at least he taught her to never just settle for the 20. Like never just settle for what's like first given to you, because you never know. And so them going into town and then just showing how segregation played a role. You have the black people on one side, and then you have the white people on another side, and then you have Grace and Bo Childs catering to both, was so profound and so significant. It just showed how we as individuals, we as people, not necessarily regardless of race, but because of our race, we are put in positions to be segregated. And this has perpetuated a lot of the biases that we see today. People from outside places, they come to America and it seems like they are put in a position to leverage their money and their finances amongst white people and catering to them, and then black people and catering to us. And you saw that clearly in the film. Now, moving on, I will say everything about this movie was biblical. Down the line, you'll find out that the twins' names are Elijah and Elias, which both center around God and Yahweh and just being one with the Lord or the Creator. But seeing their roles play out, especially when it came down to their love interest, it was a lot. It was a lot to take in, to the point where that's why I went to go see it the second time and just take more detailed notes so that I could have a clear understanding of what's actually happening. If you watch the movie, the opening scene starts with Sammy, a character named Sammy. He's also known as AKA Preacher Boy. And he's walking into church bloodied. He has scratches on his face. And his father, who happens to be the pastor of that church, pretty much gives him an ultimatum. He has a choice to make. And that choice is to put down the guitar and align with Christianity. But unbeknownst to the audience, Sammy has this other choice of continuing his pursuit in music, which is what he loves. Hence why he has the guitar. He loves music. He loves to sing. And of course, we've seen, or maybe if you've grown up in the church home or in a church home or church space, you've seen that. You've seen how blues and R&B, or which is rhythm and blues, but you see how that has devastated people's homes and the community itself. Like music, and even his father said, you know, when you go out there, you're going to be dancing with the devil. And it speaks a lot to like how music is perceived. Music is transcendent. So some people perceived when the roof was on fire and it was burning and the music was like escalating and you saw like people people's ancestral roots. So you saw Grace's ancestry, you saw the ancestry of like rock and roll in connection with Sammy. And then you saw like even the hip hop, the drum line, it has African roots. And you saw the girl like twerking in the corner, just kind of showing how music is designed to make our bodies move. But the very thing that makes our bodies move has been criticized and critiqued and ripped to pieces, and women's sexuality is now convoluted because is it appropriate to twerk? But it's part of our culture. Like I'll say, for example, last year I went to a Mardi Gras event, which is I don't even know how to explain Mardi Gras and the history of it. It's fascinating. It's deep Southern culture. It's beyond what I can conceive. And so going to this party where people get dressed up and they wear masks, it's kind of like a masquerade and it's a ball. Just the music that was playing, some of this music is dark. Some of this music perpetuates violence. It's heavily sexualized. But even still, sometimes I know that I'll listen to a song for the beat. I'll listen to a song for the 808. I'll listen to the song for the percussion, not necessarily the words, because words are powerful. But being in that space of people from all different age ranges and sizes and just everything, it was just so beautiful. There was songs playing and I seen women, like older women, twerking on the walls, shaking booty. And at first, I felt like, oh my gosh, should they be doing this? And maybe that goes to like a distorted mindset that I have and how I was raised to even look or question what my ancestors are doing. And nobody was worried about them twerking. They wasn't worried, but nobody else was worried about them dancing. And that woke me up spiritually to say, you know what, at the end of the day, one, mind your business, but two, it's how music makes you feel. A lot of people, when they're sad, they listen to sad songs. When you're happy, you listen to happy, high vibrating frequencies. You listen to that kind of music. So it's all about finding your medium. And Ryan was able to show that and showcase finding your medium, because music is so deeply rooted in our culture and has been around for ages, centuries. It's just something that it speaks to the soul. When you are in the church and you grow up in the church, there's a lot of stigmas around like preachers' kids being the rebel. And I've seen it in the churches that I've been in. I've seen where you have the preacher and the first lady and then the kids. And a lot of people would gossip about the children because they ended up being rebels. They ended up being not deemed as holy or whatever their father was, or they didn't follow that route. So seeing Sammy go through this whole story, this whole journey with these characters, with Smoke, with Stack, it was so profound because a lot of us felt like Sammy. If you grew up in a church and you know what that comes with, and you know that your elders are telling you, don't be listening to that blues or don't be listening to that inappropriate music, it resonates with you in the sense that we all have a choice to make, but is that truly who you are? Is that truly who you want to be? Knowing that you're conforming, because religion, in a sense, you are conforming to something, to a belief. Regardless if you believe in a higher power, any religion has its own rules. So the fact that we were able to touch on this is beautiful, it's wonderful, it's great. It opens the door for conversations to be had, especially when you have family trauma, especially when you have trauma bonds to people or places or things that you either decided I'm gonna choose what's best for me and what I want, or I'm not gonna choose what's best for me and I'm gonna align with what my family wants. The first person that I want to talk about is Annie. Annie was the girl, friend, or lover of Smoke, aka Elijah. So Annie is beautiful in the sense that she represents Black love. She represents a woman who's not only spiritual but just knows herself. And the beautiful thing is they showcase that Annie and Smoke have this deep chemistry. It could almost be a little triggering for some when you know that you've been involved with somebody. And I hear that, when you have a kid with someone and that kid does not survive, it hurts. It's a painful experience. And so Annie, being that I would say she practices hoodoo, because hoodoo and voodoo are not the same. Voodoo is more so a religion based off of spirituality, whereas hoodoo is like the actual root work, and it's more flexible in the sense that she had her mojo bag. You can put your crystals together and you can, do your chants or whatever you need to do. And connect with nature for the greater good or whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. Smoke left that situation, but the love remained. That soul tie remained. And so when he came back, he knew that he had to go find his Annie. Prior to even him showing up to her, people had mixed feelings about their relationship. I saw some comments that said that he was just kind of using her. He knew that he had been gone for 7 years. He comes back, and at the end of the day, all he wanted for her was to cook. And it just shows how Black women just accept the bare minimum, or we're always like putting our feelings to the side for a man. I can agree with that to an extent, but you can't deny chemistry, even if it's dangerous, even if people, they crash out together on some Bonnie and Clyde. What Annie and Smoke had was so deep and so spiritual and needed to be showcased. I feel like when you meet somebody that you love and you have that connection with, whether there's trauma involved or not, because a lot of people have trauma bonds and things that happen in the relationship. Smoke knew what he was doing when he was going up there, and Annie knew what it was. Those are two grown people that could have very well said, you know what, I'm not dealing with you. But because the love was there, even 7 years later, they were able to show us a love so deep and so true that they were able to come back together until the very end. Juxtaposed to that, you have Stack and Mary. That is an interesting relationship in itself, because personally, I was mad at my girl Mary. I was upset with Mary. I feel like Mary crossed a lot of boundaries, being that she was 1/8 African American or Black. I was watching another show and it said octoroon, which is like a term for being 1/8 of African descent. But she's white passing. And I learned a lot about white passing in college, actually. I read a novel called Passing by Nella Larson, which is a great, great, great read. And it just talked about two women and their stories about one being white passing but assimilating with whiteness, but then wanting to like know more about her Black roots. And then the other woman is also white passing, but she has a Black husband and she's down for the culture. Not saying that Mary wasn't down, but I feel like Mary crossed so many boundaries. She was told multiple times to stay away and she couldn't, to the point where she thought she was helpful. I have empathy for people of mixed race and people who are biracial, because I totally understand what it's like to not feel like you fit in, but I could never conceptualize having whiteness and blackness within me, and then being shunned or rejected from both sides. And I feel like we saw that we saw that in the movie. We saw it play out. And Mary used her passing to get into the spaces that she got into. Although she really loved Stack, how their relationship transpired throughout the film, even to the end result of them being together, but they could only be seen in darkness. That's a lot to unpack for a lot of people. A lot of people will be upset and say that, you know, Mary used her whiteness to infiltrate, but then she would use her blackness to gain favor, even with Annie saying she's family. And then when she became a vampire, she used that against her own people. So that is something that is deep. I'm still sitting with it, even though I've watched it twice. It's still a lot because I don't want to just be like, well, F Mary, you know, I don't want to like invalidate her feelings. And I feel like that's the worst thing you could do to someone that's in that space, is invalidate their feelings. Because a part of them wants to connect with their blackness, but then also, when everybody told her she should go, she should have left. When they told the people they can't come inside, and then she was like, oh, well, you know, I could go talk to them and I can see, you know, what they have and if their money runs long. Nobody asked you to do that. So that right there is why Mary was put in the place that she was put in. And it's interesting because I talked about Ryan Coogler and his relationship with Michael B. Jordan and how they did Creed together. And I also talked about like Passing, which is a movie, it's a short movie. I believe it's on Netflix, and it features Tessa Thompson, who was in Creed. And I just I don't know why I'm saying this, but I was like, where's Tessa? Like, why couldn't she play the role? But I just feel like Haley did a great job. She did a great job. I mean, body was tea. She served. Like, I just think that if anybody should have gotten the opportunity, she delivered and she did what she needed to do. So shout out to her, because it just made the story so enticing and just so intricate and detailed and descriptive, and you felt like stuff was going down, but it was like so much happening in the forefront, in the background. And if you don't know now, like, vampires are involved. Just the whole plot of Remick coming to the people's house, or the nephew's house of Hogwood, and them inviting him in. It's showing like how, even though like his skin was burning, he looked toe up. That community will stick together. They invited him in. They didn't question anything about his physical appearance. They just took his word for it and was like, oh, come on in, you one of us. And at the end of the day, like, them turning into vampires is kind of like, ooh, that's what you get. But there's so many dynamics to where it's like, you see these communities, even the Native Americans, they stuck together. The white people inviting Remick into their home, they stuck together. And then you have Club Juke, which was, for the most part, it was slightly diverse, predominantly African American people. But when it came to like Mary going out, getting bit, becoming a vampire, and then her coming back on some, oh, can I come in? Boom, she gets access easily. Now, they pressed the line on cornbread for whatever reason, but the whole dynamic of vampires, specifically energy vampires, letting someone come into your home, you have to be careful. They don't have to have fangs for you to be able to use your inner dialogue, your inner voice, and determine whether or not this person should be close to you. It is not even just your home, just spaces that are safe and sacred to you as a person. Do you want said individual to come in. That's what an energy vampire is. Someone who sucks the living life out of you. Someone who just wants to see you on their vibration. And Remick, he was preaching unity and being one and just like this divine consciousness, but it was fake, it was faulty, it wasn't real. And a lot of people were disturbed or shocked that he knew the Lord's Prayer. But like, the biggest lie ever told is that the devil does not exist. And if the devil's been around for so long, why wouldn't the devil know the Lord's Prayer? That is how energy vampires and vampires in general, they glamorize you. I used to watch True Blood like crazy. If you know anything about True Blood, oh my gosh, that was the best show on HBO that I've ever seen when it comes to like a vampire story, and there were werewolves and things. Like, it was a step up from Twilight. I'll just say that. But they will glamour you. They will charm you. They will do whatever, say whatever, talk the same talk as you, walk the same or similar walks as you, just to get into your vicinity. And when they do, they will steal and rob you of your joy. Steal, kill, and rob you of everything that you've worked hard for. So you have to be so careful. When you allow someone into your space, you have to make your demands clear. You have to set boundaries early. You have to do things outside of your home before you just open it up to whoever, because you don't know what you're going to get. But then we have Grace. The most significant thing that I realized about Grace and her character, a lot of people were upset with Grace. A lot of people felt like Grace was a traitor, like she was fake, because how is everything cool? And then like she said something along the lines, it's like, we didn't sign up for this. We just came to get the money, help out, and then we need to go bounce. We need a dip. And we feel that way. We being as the Black community, some people, maybe not all people, but when it comes to people of color, the biggest thing that I like to say, speaking for myself, is that I experience more harm from people of color than I do white people. I experience more traumatic events from people of color than I do white people. When it's a white person and they say something racist or do something racist, or they say a stereotype or whatever, even if it's a joke, yes, it hurts. Yes, it's not okay, but it's kind of to be expected. Whereas when I see a person of color that's African American or not, maybe they're Hispanic or Asian or whatever the case, and they do something, especially when it's to like assimilate with whiteness, that triggers me. And so it was like Grace and Bo Childs, they was riding, they was talking the talk, they was doing everything that they were supposed to do when they were in the Black space. But then when stuff hit the fan, it was time to go. It was time to roll out. And of course, the scene where Grace is basically, she's thinking about her daughter, which I don't think she was really thinking. She was thinking about her daughter, but like, you couldn't just wait till the sun came up like that bit. I don't know, it was weird to me. But when she said, come on in, everybody come in. Yeah, like I heard people groaning in the theater like, what the heck? Why would you say that? Even I said, why would you say that? Like, what was the point? Why do you want to be a martyr all of a sudden? But I guess like it was good that she did that to kind of just escalate the storyline and get through it, because she was thinking about her child. But I just said, if it was the other way around and Grace went out to go get the car and Bo Child stayed, yeah, no, he wouldn't. I don't think that from that perspective of Bo Child's being in the house with them, I don't think he would have yelled, come on in. I just don't. So that sparked a lot of controversy, and just got me thinking about like how maybe sometimes people of color don't like people of color, and I wish that would get better. I wish that would get better, because if we all were to work together and collaborate, we could do great things. But sometimes we have stereotypes against other cultures to where it destroys the process, and it allows for the vampires to come in and infiltrate and bite us and take us down because we lack unity. Everybody was not on the same page in that scene. She made a choice. Even Smoke trying to put his hand on her mouth, and she bit him, and she was like, nope, I'm gonna do what I want to do. It just shows like division amongst races. To backtrack a little bit, there was the character Delta Slim, and he had a monologue about his friend Rice, and I believe in an interview he said that the story was about 3 pages long and he shortened it, and then there was like that profound humming scene. Ryan Coogler, I'm gonna need all 3 pages. I'm gonna need that transcript because I just feel like I need the story. I need the full story. Yes, I know that his friend was castrated, and I know that there are like some holes, but I just felt like the story, because it was cut and pasted and details were left out. In my opinion, I just feel like I didn't get the full experience. Remick was the vampire. He was the antagonist of the story, and you could tell he had Irish roots and ancestry. He talked about his people being oppressed, which we hear time and time again, and it just seems like the world, not even the country, but the world, has some dark history. Blood has been shed, and it's ignorant to think that it does not affect us as a collective. Like, I don't want to think that what my ancestors been through has no effect on my life today. I know that everything that my ancestors have been through has put me in a place where I am now to be better, to be greater, and to learn from their mistakes and what they've been through so I could do better for my own sake and for my children and my family. I really want to know more about his story and his background. When he talked about his oppressors, it made me think of, there's a book called Riot. It's written by Walter Dean Myers. And it talked about how the Irish people were upset because they were being called to fight for us. They were being called to fight for our emancipation, and I don't believe they wanted to. And so it talks about a biracial girl who's both Irish and African American, and there was some racial tension, but it seemed like our stories were similar, just in the sense that we are being colonized. So I just need to know more. I need to do my own research. But yeah, if you haven't read that book, Riot, you should read it. It dates back to like 1863. But when you start putting the pieces together about our country, a lot of things will start making sense. And I'm so glad that Ryan Coogler was able to weave all of these different networks and communities in the 2-hour time frame that he had. Like, it was just flawless. Everything about this movie was beautiful. It's just my second time that I watched the movie. It wasn't as enjoyable. It wasn't as deep because I had people around me who, in my opinion, were making me uncomfortable. So I went by myself, and I had somebody behind me squeezing a water bottle constantly, and I just chose to ignore it because I didn't want to ruin my own experience. And then I had people in front of me kind of making a mockery of the music that was playing. Like, even the end credit with Sammy singing Let It Shine. When I saw it the first time, that scene, it lit a fire in me to just keep shining. I can't turn my skin color off. And that's something that I think I need to talk about in another episode, is colorism. But yeah, this skin tone of mine is not going anywhere. So yeah, I'm gonna let it shine. And just the overall undertones of racism, and just how Hogwood took their money, took Smoke and Stack's money, and then still turned around with the KKK and had every intention on killing them. It's sick. It just shows how you cannot trust people. And it just shows, like, the downside of Black excellence. I know that Smoke and Stack as characters had good intentions to bring feel good music to people and to help them because they're working on plantations. And I know that they wanted to like bring in the liquor and just kind of make money and take a chance. But Smoke and his intuition and going back to like the red pill, blue pill of him just kind of being compliant with things, he was questioning. You could tell Stack though, he had like the bright ideas. He wanted to break free. He wanted to be this person. He was trying to protect Mary, but he couldn't really protect her. And lust, I believe, played a big role in that scenario because of the chemistry that they had. But again, they both became vampires. Stack and Mary, like, that's the end of their relationship, and it's because of the crossing of boundaries. Smoke, on the other hand, he had intuition and he had Annie, and it's not to say that one is better than the other, but it just shows like how they were connected in such a powerful way. So by the end of the movie, it's just him fighting the KKK, and he does it in a very tactical way. He does it in a way that's organized. He was ready to go. He was standing on business. He was standing on the fact that he had to sacrifice Annie. Not only did he lose the baby, but Annie, she made it clear, if something happens to me, don't let me turn. You need to stake me in the heart. You need to get this over with so that I can transcend. And seeing Smoke at the very end see Annie and the baby in white as he was dying and taking the mojo bag off and just kind of like saying like I'm okay. That was the ultimate sacrifice for him. And sometimes in life we do need to make those sacrifices because playing around, dancing with the devil, you can get caught up. Because Sammy made the choice to continue with music, he's still safe. He's still protected. He still chose himself. He didn't let his father dictate his life. And you could see that very clear even when they were talking about the twins being they were talking about what happened with their father and asking Sammy like, is your father, he not beating on you? You know, I love that dynamic between cousins, making sure, you know, from a big cousin to a little cousin, making sure your family is good. But all of their decisions collectively, it changed the whole game. It changed the game. It changed my perspective as to who you do business with. It changed my perspective as to who you let come into your space versus who you let, you know, stay away. Everybody's money is not good money, or all money ain't good money. That's something that I learned. So Mary even trying to go get the coins from even though I like they tune with the banjo, it was attractive, but what did it do? It got them caught up. I have a lot of feelings about Sinners. I think it was a great conversation piece. I applaud both Ryan and Michael for doing that, as well as the other cast members, because it took all of them collectively to pull it off. So they all did an amazing, fantastic job. I'm hoping that they come out with maybe a number 2. I don't even know what it would be. Maybe the number 2 could just be a different time period or a time frame, but kind of like the similar things. And we talk about all of the ghouls and the goblins and the monsters, kind of similar to like Lovecraft Country, where we explore that side of hoodoo and voodoo and spirituality. So with all that being said, you know, it just showed so much. It just showed how the devil will lie about community. The devil will lie about unity and dominion. And there's so much power in the heart. There's so much power in silver, because that silver in that guitar clocked him upside his head, like it should have. But just with Sammy leaving us all with this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. We all need to do that. We need to collectively let our lights shine so that we can be better people. and we know how to denounce the devil and not do business with the devil, not to get caught up. But sometimes it's almost inevitable. Sometimes you're gonna get scratched, just like Sammy did. Those are the bigger lessons. But at the end of the day, he lived. He lived a long life. He was okay. He still was able to do what he loved. He was able to restore his uncle's guitar. And so there was just so much that we could take away from that movie. At the end of the day, choose you. Let your light shine. Know that everything that you do is not sinful. There's a lot of rhetoric from Christians casting judgment on the movie, and not all Christians, some of them are. But I think that is the irony of the name Sinners, because even if you watch it, whether you feel like it's demonic or not, if you're looking at it and you feel like it's demonic and your heart is calling you not to watch it, then just let that be your prerogative. But then going on social media and casting judgment on others, that's where the message is convoluted, because you didn't see the movie, and then you're rebuking people for seeing the movie when people are just trying to find an escape. People are just trying to find a connection. People are trying to just find closure. A lot of people are looking for closure in the year of the snake. A lot of people are looking for identity and meaning in who they are. So I think I know that the movie itself was beautifully orchestrated, and it just showed the power of people. There's so much going on besides you. There are so many energies around you that you have to have this strong magnetic field and the gift of discernment to make sure that you are not dancing with the devil. Like I always say, when life gives you thorns, search for roses. Peace.